Hey, welcome to a recovery day right here on No Vacancy Live. What do you think about that, Anthony?
I recovered yesterday.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey, everybody. Welcome to No Vacancy Live Recovery Edition post Alice. That's Anthony Melchiori. I'm Glenn Hausman. Anthony, I want to hear all about what your experience was. We got a great guest today. But before we do that, I want to say thanks to our good friends over at Avgo. They've got a great virtual front desk assistant, human assistant, but not really. It's a computer. It's right there. It allows your guests to check in day or night. But if they need help, there's a person right there in the screen. They'll answer your calls just like that and take care of you. Make sure you check them out at avgo.com, AAVGO, for the people listening. Anthony, I'm telling you, there's a lot of technology, and this is a technology that I'm seeing going into hotels now. I'm very excited about.
Absolutely.
All right, you got a ringing phone. All right. So I think what I want to do is we got a great guest today. I want to talk all about Alice from, how we get through the day to all the practical information that you need to know. So let's bring on to the show Mr. Michael Shindler, president for Corners Advisors. Great to see you, Michael. Welcome back to the show.
Good to see you guys.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, bud.
All right, so today is what we call a little bit of smoke and mirrors because I'm exhausted. I'm sure Anthony's tired. Michael, you've got to be tired too because that Alice conference is one of the most exhausting events of the year. You've got to be on from 6:30 in the morning, 7 in the morning till, if you're like us, 12, 1, 2 a.m., or if you're like Anthony, 4, 5 a.m., because I can't party like that guy can.
Well, I had a short flight home back to Phoenix, so but I was in bed by 9:45, which was really early for me. So
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I usually, when I'm not with Glenn, and he knows my routine, I disappear. But I went to Alice to make connections because I'm working on something, and went to a couple of parties, and I sat in the corner listening to music and fell asleep like an old man. But it was fun. I'll tell you, like you just said, Alice is really, it's one of those conferences you don't really have to look really hard to find everybody you want to talk to or really good sessions. I was really surprised. I sat in a lot of sessions, and it's just chock full of really good information. Some stuff like any conference you've heard before, but it was really good. And really, I really enjoyed it. I really did.
I have to confess, and Glenn and I saw each other outside at the plaza. That's what I spent all my time out there. I was not registered, but I spent most of both of the days there. And you run into people, you meet a couple of new people, you run into some old friends, you talk about what's going on.
And what's that restaurant? Basically, they should charge you to go into that restaurant.
The Yard House, they do charge.
Well, they do charge you.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, Anthony, they started, they rent out all of the tables there. You could rent them for a fee, plus you have to get a certain amount of food and beverage throughout the day. And people are finding that to be a good alternative to go into the event at all. But fortunately for Jeff Higley and the team over at North Star, they had an amazing amount of people, and it was super successful. Of course, we're talking about Alice, the America's Lodging Investment Summit, which takes place at LA Live in downtown LA. Michael, back to you.
Great site. I came away and I try to, I don't have people there typically who are my clients. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to old friends, new friends, people that I've spent a lot of time with over the years. And I don't see a whole lot different from what some of the other folks have said. I saw that Michelle Russo's newsletter came out. Mm-hmm. HVS's newsletter came out. So my perspectives are not considerably different from those. I think we're all sort of feeling the same way.
Which is what for people?
What are you feeling, my friend?
I think we will probably see a recession. Some people will be hurt by it and feel the pain. I think others will come through it pretty well. The big issue for the industry as a whole are the two big issues to me are labor and basically corporate travel. Corporate travel's still not back. And, we're probably all part of it. This podcast is part of that.
Right.
We're doing it this way. So I think that we're still all waiting for corporate travel. Group has really started to come back nicely. We had a good year. The properties that I oversee, good year in group, but corporate travel is the question mark. And I think that's up and down the chain scale.
Well, how off is corporate travel? I'm going to make a prediction. Get ready for it, Glenn. How off is corporate travel?
I'd say, depending on the city, of course, Chicago, San Francisco,
But overall,
sucking wind overall, I'm guessing it's 15 to 20% off from high years.
I think that's maybe another 5% will come back, and I think we're done. I think that then that's it. Everybody I talk to in the catering business, there is zero corporate catering. There is zero corporate holiday parties were non-existent. There's barely any weekly corporate catering going on in New York City.
Right.
My friend is the biggest corporate caterer in New York City, and he's like, I have zero corporate catering. It's groups, it's leisure, it's families, but him sending 5-6 trucks into the city is over.
He's gonna have to go to social.
And it's also he'll do well. He's been around forever. But my point being is I don't really see it. It's kind of like that 30% number, and you know better than anybody, that 30% number that left the industry and never coming back. What percentage eventually come back? Will it be 10 more percent, or will it be at 30%? No one ever comes back. Who knows? What do you think?
I think it's probably will come back a little higher than you think. Whether we'll ever get back to the 18 and 19 levels on corporate travel, I don't. I think that you remember that old United Airline commercial where the boss got all of his salespeople and started handing out plane tickets.
Right. Yes, I do remember.
And they
that.
said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I'm going to see that old client that just fired us."
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. I don't think the trip that we're talking today, and the guy that says, "I'm going to fly out and see you tomorrow," that's gone.
I think there's negotiations not only in flex time of, hey, I want to work from home one day or two days, but it's like, I used to travel 8 weeks a year. If I can travel 2 weeks a year, I can still be effective and I'll prove it. I think a lot of that negotiation is going on too.
Right.
Yeah. I even think my daughter-in-law is an event planner, and the whole company is remote. They do all their events remotely, except when they have to go to the event. They'll do site visits, but they go to the event and they work their butts off. But
my daughter's an event planner too. My daughter's an event planner too, and works Monday and Friday from home. And she legitimately can probably work 3 or 4 days from home. Yeah.
So the other thing I see is that interest rates, no one knows. The Fed's meeting next week. Does the Fed say we're raising it by 50 basis points again? Do they say it's 25? Do they give a hint that when the next quarterly meeting happens, that they may stop, or the second one, they may stop? All of that, I was using the word last week, roils the market. And when the market is roiled, everyone's uncertain. I had a loan close for a client. I was not the intermediary. Shout out to HREC. Greg Porter did a great job for us. We closed a loan. The Bank of Japan announced the difference perspective on its interest rates. Rates went up overnight 30 basis points.
Wow. And let me just explain real quick, when we say basis points, it's like if it's 50 basis points, that means 1/2 of 1%. 30 basis points would be 0.3%. Sorry, Michael, please continue.
A basis point is 1/100th of a percent.
Right. 1%. Okay. Yep. There you go. Please continue.
So
but when you say 0.3%, it sounds like
a tenth of a percent.
Yeah, right. 3/10 of 1%.
100th of a percent.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
I think everyone got it. I'm still unclear, but everyone else got it.
But when you're starting into the tens of millions or hundreds of millions bucks, 30 basis points, 20 basis points is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So 20 basis points on $50 million costs you an extra $100,000 a year of interest. So
wow,
put it
that is a lot of money.
And we ended up about 20 basis points higher than we thought we were going to have, because they don't set until that day. Fortunately, we had underwritten the loan internally at a higher rate. So rates are confusing.
Yeah.
How is reaching the debt ceiling? How's that playing into the mix with everybody calling Armageddon?
Yeah, I didn't hear anyone talking about it.
Because it really has no impact on us. The government will shut down eventually if they can't pay the bills. We've seen this before. They're going to give on both sides eventually. Given that it took Congress, I don't know how long to pick the speaker and organize itself, and they're still working on
Only
it.
15 votes or something like that.
Yeah. So I don't think it has a whole lot of impact. It does tend to drive up some of the rates that are used as the benchmarks. And therefore, we're going to see that confusion and that uncertainty. But eventually, it has to get raised. It's sort of a stupid concept.
What are the indicators? I think Congress is a stupid concept, but what do you think the indicators that you're seeing there looks like there's going to be a recession? What are the biggest indicators that are scaring you?
I think group business is, for example, is such a shorter window that goes up and down. And, we got a war in Ukraine and we're about to send tanks over there. Does that accelerate the war? Does it make it worse? Who knows? So all of those things are out there. The job market is actually pretty good right now.
Oh, yeah.
But interest rates, the Fed's rates that start to affect, obviously, government borrowing, banks' willingness to loan, they are just naturally more conservative. And that sort of
Well, it does seem that
down.
from what I've been seeing, inflation is slowing due to the Fed's action on raising the interest rates, but we're probably not where we need to be yet, but I think we're heading in the right direction. That being said, one of the stories we were hearing coming out of the lodging conference back in September, and for everyone out there, there's a bunch of major financial conferences throughout the year. Usually there seems to be one every season that gives us an indication of what's going on. The lodging conference, people were saying the rise in interest rates were already baked in. My guess is they weren't thinking it was going to be as much as it is going to. So I think there was some planning ahead for that, but some unexpected rise as well. Do you think that this is going to cut down in the amount of development, and the development that is cut, will that be development that may not have been a good idea anyway?
Anecdotally, from my perspective, I'm seeing almost no pre-development activity. And that, that was sort of the core. Fortunately, I've morphed my business a little bit, but that was sort of the core of my business. Very limited pre-development activity. So it's not that it doesn't exist. Yeah. And remember, if you start to think about a project today, particularly a project of any magnitude, you're not in the ground for 2 years from today. So you're trying to look ahead to when you do it. And of course, we're a very reactive business. When money's available, people start going guns a-blazing. And when money slows down, the people that don't have the track record, don't have the credibility, don't have the credit ability are slowed off. The people who have it understand that, hey, this too will pass, and they look ahead.
Right. So, but when you hear all the brands, we got 400 hotels coming out of the ground. We got 50 new brands coming out of the ground. What are they saying? Because you hear that from everybody.
Typically, and I suspect some of them do it differently when they talk about their pipeline. Typically, some sort of a term sheet has been signed.
But that doesn't mean that that project is actually going to happen, right?
And it certainly doesn't mean that it's financed. When back in the day when I was at Hyatt, we did not announce a deal until the developer had financing. And of course, that slows down. It doesn't matter how many you sign.
Right.
It only matters how many get financed and get built.
Glenn's got 30 hotels in the pipeline.
I do.
No financing, but he's got 30 hotels in the pipeline.
Too bad that pipeline is completely clogged up with my BS, so it's never going to go. It's never going to go forward.
I will say this: my advisory pipeline picked up 3 matters early this week, and not any of them were. I was at Alice, but none of them were related to Alice. But I look at my pipeline, and I got question marks on. I have maybe 7 or 8 things in it. I got question marks on 6 as to whether they'll ever happen.
Right. So in this vein, during the Alice conference, Hilton made their great debut of Spark, which is a premium economy product designed to convert other hotels into this brand pretty quickly and easily with not too much maintenance. So I thought that was interesting. And I think they said that there's over 100 projects in the pipeline. So don't know what that means when they debuted the True brand. They also came out with that number. I think it's important to come out with a strong number for the development community to get everybody excited about it. But I got a release here, as reported by our friends over at Lodging Econometrics. that in the pipeline at the end of Q4, Marriott had 1,490 projects in the pipeline. Hilton had 1,378 projects. IHG had 789 projects, and the three of those together accounted for 67% of all new products planned currently for the hospitality
And that's
industry.
got to be online with any numbers we've ever seen, right? That's got to be as high as we've ever seen it, no?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Michael, I thought you were going to answer.
No, and I think it's expected that those three brands are going to be the ones that lead the league. So whether it's 65%, 70%, 58%, that sort of thing. I mean, Marriott, I'm in a market in my hotel up in Canada where Marriott is 59% of the market and
Wow.
59% of the development pipeline.
Wow. That's
So
incredible.
it's almost impossible to get a good STR report out of them.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting. So, again, back at the Alice show, I did see, it seemed to me, Michael, that there seemed to be a whole lot more Wall Street financial money people around than some of the operators. I saw fewer management company representatives, and it seemed like most people were ownership groups and banks. Did you come away with the same impression out in that courtyard?
It's funny. I was looking for some of my former Hyatt colleagues, and I didn't see a single one.
Right.
And I mean, not necessarily that they were my colleagues at Hyatt, but people from Hyatt. So I think that the reason for that is that I do believe that what we heard about during COVID, the rescue capital, it may be repackaged and redisguised in a different name, preferred equity, mezzanine capital, et cetera. Those guys were probably out in force because of the interest rate issues. I think the number is over the next 3 to 5 years, it's like $37 billion of CMBS financing. Yeah. And remember, all during COVID, we talked about the CMBS maturities. The fact is, we all expected huge foreclosures, that the rescue capital, even as expensive as it was, would run to the rescue and help preserve some of those. What really happened is that the special servicers behaved.
Right.
They had so much to deal with. They decided that they were going to try and deal with it serially, not try to be too aggressive in taking back properties or doing that, because they couldn't get even close to the face amount of their debt during COVID. So, and I think what they saw is that working with the investment community makes sense. But those who are out there, there's still going to be some of that pain as these next sets of maturities come about. And so somebody's got to be there to sweep up the pieces.
So I know every time you're on the show, we ask you to kind of clarify some of these abbreviations. So CMBS, mezzanine. We have a lot of young kids out of college listening to us. So could you just really quickly explain what each one of those are so people can kind of understand what you're talking about?
Sure. CMBS is collateralized mortgage-backed securities. A bank, typically a bank, and the leaders are mostly banks, underwrite a loan or a package of loans. They put it all into one bucket, and then they slice the bucket up into tranches so that the top piece may have a much lower, and the borrower just pays one interest rate on whatever the total is. But what they do is they cut it up, and then they issue a securities document where you can buy tranche A, which is low interest, low risk, all the way up to F or G or H or I, higher interest, all of which, when you take the A through H, average it together, it's what the borrower is paying total.
Right.
But it's a series of risk judgments by investors who buy paper. They don't get an individual mortgage on the property on the Hampton Inn in suburban Phoenix. They get the Hampton Inn in suburban Phoenix and a residence inn someplace else and something, and it's all thrown together into a package and sold as a security.
Well, that's kind of how home mortgages work, right? The banks take a whole lump of them and then sell it off to somebody else.
Freddie Mac, right?
Yeah.
Those guys. So that's what the CMBS community. So when you're dealing with a CMBS loan, you have to deal with the rules and the protocols and the procedures that have evolved about the securitization, the ultimate securitization of your loan with other loans. So the documents are long and tedious and virtually non-negotiable.
If
Whatever
you're
you
a guy
ask,
that's doing deals, if you're a guy that has a really good background, you're developing and you're getting loans, you're not going to CBS.
oh, actually, you are, because at the end of the day, three words: non-recourse, non-recourse, non-recourse. No personal guarantees, bad
Okay.
boy guarantees, carve-out guarantees, but you don't put your own balance sheet on the line.
Okay.
So
But you're paying, in some instances, you're paying more interest.
you're not really paying more interest. You're paying a lot more costs and fees, because getting a CMBS loan is like going to a colonoscopy. So
Sounds
and those
delightful.
the young kids listening won't understand what that means, but us old
Sorry,
guys
they don't
do.
understand what the MBS loan is either. So it's all good.
Mezzanine debt is a secondary debt instrument. So you have your first mortgage, and you go borrow some more money from somebody else. The lender gets a higher rate because it's less secure.
Yep.
But it slots in a legal basis below the first mortgage. Preferred equity is typically similar to the mezz. It may have a fixed dividend because it's equity, not a fixed interest, or a lot of preferred equity has what's referred to as payment in kind dividends. In other words, if I can't pay you the cash, you get a bigger piece of equity out of it, and ultimately the preferred equity could step in if necessary.
Take over.
But it too is subordinate to the first mortgage.
So
that-
talk about a construction loan. I'm sorry, Glenn. I don't mean to go off on a tangent.
No, this is interesting.
I'm asked all these questions all the
time.
time, and I can answer most of them by 85%, but I get confused myself, and I've been doing this a long time. So explain to people how a construction loan works.
You go into a lender. This could be a bank, it could be an insurance company, it could be some of the private type lenders, and you say, I want to build a 200-room hotel. It's going to cost $300,000 a key, all in. You give them the budget, all the line items in the budget. Typically today, you're not getting a construction loan unless you have a brand attached to your hotel, whether it's a franchise with a management company or a brand managed property. They like the comfort of the loan. Most construction loans have some degree of recourse, meaning the sponsor is guaranteeing it personally, or the company, the development firm is guaranteeing, or one of the investors has the financial truck to provide a guarantee, whether it's a guarantee of repayment or a guarantee of completion.
Mm-hmm.
That's, again, a negotiable idea. Most construction loans that I've seen in the last many years have an add-on piece that it converts it when the property opens to a 2 or 3 year. It's funny you call it 2 or 3 loan, a mini perm. It's sort of permanent because now you're operating the property under the terms of a loan that gives you some runway to get the property to stabilization.
And when does that construction loan payment start?
So in the construction period, the interest is built into the loan. So it accrues interest, which is added to the principal amount of the loan. And then at the point you open, you may have set up a debt service reserve. You may have a period of interest only.
Right.
But that's typically tied to the opening of the hotel.
Right. And a lot of people, well, let me say it this way. If I open up a hotel 30 days after, I open it up 30 days after I decide to sell it, can I sell it without ever paying anything to the construction loan, and it just transitions, or no?
Possibly. It depends on the negotiation. Some lenders are perfectly comfortable with a transfer of the debt to a new buyer. And you might, if that's your plan, that becomes a negotiating point for you up front.
Right.
Or your buyer has a relationship with that lender and says, look, I know it's not permitted for me to pick up this loan, but come on, you know me, you know us.
Mm-hmm.
We're good for it. We're prepared to. And I'm going to use a legal term, which is assume, but it doesn't mean assume that you're totally, fully responsible for the repayment. It could be non-recourse.
Right.
But you're taking the property subject to the terms of that loan. So it's possible. but it's
So in
not
theory, you
cheap.
can flip the property without really putting any money into it and take the upside of getting it built and getting the value of an operating hotel, which is obviously a lot more valuable than a construction hotel.
I would have an argument with you about that. The best
No,
time to
I'm
sell
asking.
it,
I'm
the best
asking.
time to sell it might be the day before you open it, because then you're still selling the dream.
Yeah, exactly.
But it can be done that way, Anthony, but you have to negotiate that up front.
Interesting. All right. So, Michael, I don't remember if we talked about this or not, because I spoke to so many people and got so many different opinions. But when it came down to the CMBS, I heard that a lot of loans are coming due this summer, and it's put some hospitality ownership groups in a little, sticky wicket of trouble over there. And they're looking to either sell properties or figure it all out, because I've also heard the second layer is that special servicers and stuff and banks, they're no longer going to exercise patience and kick the can down the road. They are willing and more likely to repossess properties because they think they could actually make more money on the real estate now than they could have prior to this. How do you read all of that? And were you one of the people that mentioned any of that?
No, you and I did not talk about
that. Okay,
that.
All right. So
when we spoke.
Cool. So at least it's new content then.
I think I find it hard to believe that the special servicers can say today exactly what they're going to do. Every loan is going to be different. Every securitization is going to be different. Part of it depends on when the securitization was done, because those things don't get really extended. The securitization, there's an expectation of when it's going to be paid off. When it was done, how much run there is left in the loans that are in that particular securitization. So to just say up front, gee, we don't know what we're going to do. If they have, and I'm going to use a silly number, if they have $3 billion of debt that they're dealing with, they're going to have a lot more time to deal with it than if they have $23 billion of debt to deal with. They didn't really gear up to take back properties because they were so busy just trying to deal with all the properties they had.
Right.
And who's to say that, these properties are now going to be a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years older. One of the issues that I'm seeing coming ahead is that with all of the CapEx that the brands particularly allowed owners to defer, and let me say, the brands behaved well during the COVID crisis in the sense of allowing, you don't have to pay FF&E reserve anymore. You don't have to do any capital expenditures anymore.
All right, hold up. FF&E reserve is hoteliers are required to put some money away to make sure their properties can meet up with the PIP, a property improvement plan, to keep things up to snuff over a specific period of time.
Michael, let me ask you a question. And I'm really happy because a lot of owners I know said the brands behaved well. Okay. But if you have a gun to your head, okay, and there's no blanks in the gun and it's all fully loaded, are you really going to ask for FF&E and everything that they asked for? Because you had a gun to your head. They had no money. Owners, they were shocked. There was nothing going on. So, yes, they behaved well, but did they have a choice?
No, but I can probably name a handful of people that don't behave well even when they have no choice.
Right. I can name more than a handful.
So, I think that there was actually an affirmative determination that we need to help these owners, operators, and we need to be cooperative.
Right. And I think what's happening now, what's been happening last year, is the on-ramp. And a lot of owners are still pushing back and still, listen, I still am in trouble and I'm still having problems with employees and I can't do what you're asking me to do. And I think we're probably, and again, Michael, you know better than me, but I think we're going to be really close to brands starting to pop people out if they're not doing it.
I don't think there's any question. I think that the brands are going to have to look at their entire portfolio. So look, I remember back in the Great Recession, Intercontinental did something that was really smart. They told everybody on the Holiday Inn side that if you don't do a refresh by the end of, and as I recall, it was the end of December of 2009.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that it was a recession. If you don't do the brand refresh, you're out. And they followed through. And so maybe they lost 15, 20% of their properties.
Yeah, it was huge.
At the end, it was addition by subtraction. They built a better brand.
Well, me and my friend Glenn were having this conversation just the other night.
Right.
And not only did they save themselves and literally arguably save the brand, Okay, because there's another brand we won't talk about that has not been able to just click.
I was going to use that one as the next example.
Okay.
Same company, by the way.
No, I was using a completely different, but
a different company. All right.
I'm going to stay away from that. But I am politically correct sometimes, Michael. But when they did that, they did something more important than just for their brand. I think they did a lot more for the hotel business than even their brand, because every other brand took the chance. Because before that, if you remember, having somebody pop out of your inventory was malpractice, because again, Wall Street controls the brands, and Wall Street does not take kindly in fees going down. But the person that was in charge of making that decision was a legend. We were just talking about him the other day, and he saved, in my opinion, he saved the brand.
But I think the problem is this: 2020 deferred cap, 2021 they didn't even talk about it. 2022, a few things came back that were absolutely critical. But I'd be willing to bet that in the 2023 budget and CapEx cycle, things started to come back in. Some of the recurring 6, 7, 8 years, the rooms renovation, the public area space, the redo of the restaurant started to come back into budgets. And owners were still pushing back on those major expenditures, because even with ramp up, no one is back at 2018, 2019, unless you had a leisure property in Southern California or Arizona or Florida, where you were just making money hand over fist during that time.
And the good news, I'm sorry, Michael.
I was just going to say, the real issue is, at what point do the brands then say, is it 2024? Is it 2025 in the budget cycle, where they say the rooms renovation is now 10 years from the last one? You got to do this work. Yeah. And when are they going to say this is going to be done? It's probably easier on some of the limited service brands to come back, because they've been updating, Gen 4, then Gen 5, then Gen 6, and the Gen 3 isn't there. And it's probably easier for them to say, all right, everybody Gen 3, if you're not up to appropriate Gen 6 standards by the end of 2024, you're gone.
And I think hotels are in a lot better shape now than they were in 2008 and 9. When they were doing those renovations, those were like basically almost knock the building down kind of renovations. They really needed, because I don't think we had the high level design and the high level products and really the thinking of cleaning and the operation of the hotel in mind that we do now. Also, I've been in a few big hotels that are a little older, and even with a renovation, they feel like a dinosaur. They feel just, there's so much space. It almost feels uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. And then the rooms are the opposite, a little too small, like the bathrooms and stuff. The room itself might be a nice size, but bathrooms are tiny. To give a little context to what we're talking about here for you guys listening and watching out there, the whole notion behind this is that customers are starting to notice. They don't want to lose the equity in their brand when it comes to the consumer mindset. So it's essential to try to keep those properties in best condition as possible. And for properties that can't, when they are no longer welcome to fly that flag of that particular brand, that's why we're starting to see also in the hospitality industry a lot of what we call conversion opportunities. There's new construction brands, then there's brands developed for specifically conversion, or you could do either or. This move by Hilton with Spark in the premium economy segment, to me, not only is it important for them for the overall, they want to have all elements of the hospitality industry from luxury down to economy, but it's giving them now another tool to say, well, this hotel isn't good enough for this brand, but now instead of going to one of our competitors, you can stay in the family and open a Spark, right, Michael?
And I also think we're seeing, Michael, I'll let you talk just 1 second. I think you're also seeing something I was taught when I was 26 years old in this industry from a company in New York City,
right?
That limited service is more profitable. And I think the ego of full service and the ego of really these high level brands, unless they're really, special hotels, that limited service is very profitable. Extended stay was, the stepchild, the redheaded stepchild forever. And now, if you have a extended stay, limited service brand, you're the king of the world. If you have 2 or 3 luxury brands, people look at you like, oh, how's that going for you? So it's depending on where you are, of course. Am I in the ballpark, Michael, or am I wrong?
I think when I've told this story a million times, but when I went, I had started at Hyatt, and 3-4 years in, I knew full service, I knew 24-hour room service, I knew turn down service, triple sheeting. Explain that one to the kids,
Right?
And I went and took my son to soccer camp in Bloomington, Indiana, and stayed at a relatively new at the time Hampton Inn, early 90s. Oh my God, a revelation. It was safe. It was secure. The shower had water pressure. TV worked. You got a free continental breakfast in a USA Today, and you paid $72.
And life was good.
Life was great. And I sort of said at the time, that is the new Holiday Inn. I mean, Clemens Wilson was a genius. Consistency, everything in the same place at the same time. Well, Hampton Inn was sort of the next generation of that. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And then you had Lee Pillsbury creating Courtyard, a step up, but oh my God, again, the consistency. So I'd stay in the limited focus service space if I was going to be investing money and didn't make my living in this industry.
Yeah, 100%. You need less employees, and when you're traveling like on business, and or even a quick little 2-day vacation to see the sights, if you're going to Washington, New York, wherever you're going, you really just, like you said, a shower, a nice bed, and you want everything where it is, and you want to smile, and then you're good. It takes you a while to enjoy luxury. And what does that mean? Like I was in
Doesn't take me any time at all.
I was in West Virginia at the
Unless you're paying for it.
I was at the beautiful Salamander Middleburg, and I was there for a night, and it's luxurious, and the service is outstanding. But the time I was really getting comfortable, I was gone.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, oh, there's a spa. Oh crap, I gotta go. Oh, there's a restaurant. Oh crap, I gotta go. So like, it was wonderful to be in that environment. There's horseback riding. There's all kinds of stuff. I saw dogs chasing things. It was great, but like I didn't have the benefit of the luxury, and I almost was jealous because I was like, everybody else is staying, and I'm like, bye. So I am going back, but
and to be fair, he had to work, so he had no time to enjoy.
I had no time.
I was there 30 sometimes seconds. A bed is just a bed.
Yep.
Yeah. And listen, nowadays, you go to the nicest hotel. I won't call out a brand, but there's a brand in New York City that you're getting $4,000. They're getting $4,000 a night for, and then you get the bed at a Holiday Inn Express, or you name your limited service brand. And are you really going to see that big of a difference? And the answer is no, you're not. You're not. And I've slept in both in the same week many times, and you don't see the difference. I can't tell you the last time I had a bad night's sleep in a hotel. I don't even notice the mattresses anymore because they're all basically comfortable.
As a matter of fact, Michael, when I was getting a tour of the model room they built out at the Alice conference for the Spark brand, the pillows in the bed were pretty amazing. Not just in context of the segment, but just in general. So
did you lie down on the bed?
No, I did the touching thing.
No. I mean, you do a model room, you better go lie on that damn bed.
Well, what I do is when I do a model room for a hotel, I have them send bed to me.
Hold on, I get it, but that's a little different than me taking a quick tour.
But matter of fact, we should have them on the show, my friend.
Oh, we will. Yeah, we're already working on that.
I mean, I think it's a pretty genius move by Hilton. Not surprising, because if something goes out of the Hampton system, and I don't know exactly what the result of Spark is. I haven't really looked into it yet. But if something's going out of Hampton, then they can stay in the Hilton system.
Right.
That's another brand for the they don't lose, and they're going to replace the Hampton.
Right, exactly.
And so they get more market share. Mm-hmm. They have another brand for the loyal guy. They probably are doing some incentive on the franchise deal for the one who's switching from one to the other, so they don't lose that client in the Hilton family. And by
client, you mean the owner in this?
The owner, case. Right? The owner. And at the same time, they've now created just however much market share that means, they're going to collect that. And
Yeah.
so
Now, listen, the Hampton Inn is the perfect example for that because near the Massachusetts-Connecticut border, there's an original Hampton Inn. You guys know how it looks, like the honeycomb kind of look, but it had an economy brand name at this point now, right? Because it's a much older asset that wasn't appropriate for the direction that the Hampton Inn brand went to. So I agree. This is a great idea for them. If they can convert more of those properties that are aging out of the system into one of their own, then that's a great way to make that developer happy, that owner happy, without sending them to another company where maybe they'll find a different kind of love that they like, and they'll develop even other hotels with them, right, Michael?
And probably a less expensive PIP at that point.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I got an idea.
Uh-oh.
All the brands merge, one segment, one economy segment, one middle, one luxury segment. That's it. Everything looks the same in each segment, and they all share the profits.
That's a great idea. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Thank you, Michael.
You put me on work.
You said it. Like, if I'm listening to the podcast, most people listen, they don't look. I'm like, oh, that sounds like he's really serious. But if you look at your eyes go like, you're an asshole.
You're going to put half the industry out of work.
No, but I'm just saying, it's just like in every market segment, right? And if you're in a limited service or you're mid-scale or you're luxury, we all want the same things in that area, right? And I think it's all kind of nuance at this point, but let's call it what it is. It's all a lot of sameness. I mean, we can change the color, we can change the drapery, we can change the wall, whatever. But at the end of the day, they're all about the same footprint. They're all about the same kind of level of luxury, depending on the segment. So, and I enjoy them all. I'm not criticizing.
You'll never see Chris Nassetta and Tony Capuano again. They'll cross the street when they see you coming.
Well,
you're done.
Well, I won't tell you what brand leader saw me. Glenn got some sushi at the event that we were just at, and then I said, you know what, let's get some more, because there's a lot more people coming, and I was hungry, he was hungry, everybody was hungry. So I put 5 plates, because I used to be a busboy, so I put 5 little plates without thinking about it on my hand, and as I'm walking, this brand leader, won't tell you who it was, said, Anthony, you can go back for more. I felt like such an asshole. I was like, oh my God, the leader of the world just embarrassed the crap out of me. No, listen, I think every brand, I will tell you this.
Yeah.
The brains at these brands are scary. There are some people in these brands that are so incredibly smart. Some people from a design standpoint who are really smart. So they keep people in check who are really good asset managers, and they keep people in check or who are operators. But each segment of that company, the brain power is incredible. There's an up and coming development woman, I think we all know that, I don't know if we should name, who, if she's not a CEO or CEO of one of these brands in the next 18 months, I'll be shocked. Yeah. Just really tremendous.
I know one. It may not be the same one, but I know one who fits that category.
Well, there's a lot of great people who I know are going to be our next wave of presidents and CEOs.
You guys better find somebody younger to run this podcast in another year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Michael. So I hope you enjoyed your stay here as long as it lasted.
Yeah, hold on. Let's do this.
So we don't change. Just so you know, we don't change the host. The host stay. We change the age of the people
coming. Of the guests.
That's what keeps it relevant.
Well, I have 2 kids in this business, as you know, so they can, and I assure you that my son would be more than happy to step in and become the next Shindler.
I will tell you this, and Glenn's heard me say this: when you're for years, everybody comes over to me, I love your show, I love your show, I love your show. When I was just at this conference, I would say 90% of the people that came over and said, I love your show, love your show, love your show. I think that talk about my TV show, but when I say which show, it's the podcast. Oh, yeah. And so many young people really depend on your analysis of what we just broke down those loans. They're writing notes. I'm telling you. Matter of fact, I went into one of the conferences, one of the breakout sessions, and they handed out a paper with like 80 different definitions of things in real estate. Mm-hmm. And there was probably 30 of them I didn't even know. And I was an asset manager. And I was just like, this is really good. It was like kind of a 101, but even I learned something.
That's awesome.
So,
it's a neat little handbook to get the glossary of terms.
All right. Today, the comments for some reason are acting wonky, but I've been checking around on some of the sites, and we got one question coming in. What changes, Michael, what changes in hospitality do you want to see? And then additionally, what improvements do you feel are needed?
Well, the one I want to see across the board, and I prefer, is the question about whether you want your room cleaned.
Yeah.
I am, although my wife might disagree, I am a neat freak in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I even sort of pull the covers up on the bed before I
Really?
leave.
I do too.
And my towels are hung up on the
hooks
over the shower or on the shower bar or whatever. My clothes are put away. So I'm pretty neat. I don't need, if I'm in a hotel for 2 nights, because they've redone maid service, housekeeping service. Great.
Right.
I don't need it. If I'm there for a week, sure, I want it maybe in between. So I think that optional issue should be automatic, and how often would you like housekeeping service if you're there multiple nights? That's number one.
I think that's a really good question, as opposed to you want housekeeping service. How often would you like housekeeping service?
That's I was originally going to say, because you can say, do you want to opt in or opt out? And they're both kind of a little sticky there, because if someone opts in, then you're telling them that you're not going to get housekeeping. But if you want to opt out, people aren't necessarily going to take the time to do that.
Yeah. I just think, and it should be done at check-in, not this advanced reservation thing that's taken the people out of it. Now, I get the kiosks, but the kiosks aren't going to be in the luxury hotels anytime soon, or even the really nice full service hotel. The other thing I'm wondering about from an owner's perspective are concierge clubs in hotels. And so I know this is a high class problem because you're staying in a full service hotel, but do you really, if you're not paying, is there an ROI on the concierge club?
Well,
that's something I'm starting to look at
Michael,
carefully.
I'm seeing a lot of them closed and stayed closed. And now they're like kicking you $5, $10, $15 food and beverage credit. And if they're doing that, they've probably figured out the formula that X amount of people, fewer, are going to use those credits. And in aggregate, it's probably costing them less.
But that's the question, but some of them are coming back. And I'm wondering, as an owner advisor, should they be coming back? I think I like the idea of what the hotels have done with the soft goods in the rooms, a bit more modernization, a bit, the days of even the, what do you call not the mattress, the bed cover, but the little throw at the bottom of the bed, the sham at the bottom of the bed, or a pillow.
The throw.
Get rid of those things because they end up on the floor, and nobody wants to put them on their bodies. So get rid of those.
And they do that simply because the white sheet and it's just to bring in color. But I agree with you. I've been talking about that forever.
I mean, guys, it's right there in the name. It's a sham. Come on.
In reference to, is that your middle name? In reference to the clubs, it's funny because I've kind of just started paying attention. And Glenn and I have actually used some clubs recently.
The one that we were both recently in was fabulous.
And we both said, wow, this really made a difference.
But it was in the right place for it as well.
But were you paying more for it, or was it an upgrade?
We weren't, but it was.
We're lucky. We're those podcast guys.
You don't pay, right?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if I'm staying at a hotel that has clubs, right, and then one takes it out and one leaves it in, I'm going changing brands over it. That, to me, that's a brand changing. If I'm always going to LA or I'm always going to New York and I'm there 2 times a month, and one has a club, one doesn't, and I just found out my guy just closed, I'm changing brands over it. That's me, because I like that isolation and quiet, and I don't want to see the volleyball team in my my breakfast area.
I don't have a problem with that, but the question is from the owner. Particularly if Anthony is getting comped, is that may be costing me $15 against my room night, or $12 against my room night. More if you're having a drink, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's not priced into the room.
Right.
if it's a paid upgrade, and I'm just concerned about the economics.
Right.
It's one thing, somebody's paying a full rate, let them go to the club. Somebody not paying a full rate.
No, I think they should have club rates. I think the floor on the club should be premium, and it should be $25 to $50 more. And those people that want that will take it. And if I'm going into a city that I'm doing business, and if I probably will use that. So I think I just think there are a lot of things that you can throw away that a lot of owners and brands don't really think it's really hurting them. I think that's one that needs analysis and serious thought.
That's the answer. I agree. Is that it needs the analysis.
And it depends on what city you're in, right? I know, like the Marriott Marquis.
Depends on all those factors.
The Marriott Marquis in Times Square, they quadrupled down.
I was just going to say that.
On their breakfast room. But now it's a regular breakfast room because it's so crowded.
Yeah.
If Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton say, okay, across this brand, I'm going to use the Signia brand. I don't know that there's more than a handful
Signia
of them
is
yet,
a new Hilton brand that's focused on meetings.
But if Signia creates a Signia club, and then they say every Signia, you're opening the Signia club, have they done the analysis for each city that a Signia is in and each individual hotel that the Signia is in? And you could call it Marriott's Club, the Regency Club at Hyatt, any of the clubs. If you just say we're opening the Regency Club across every Hyatt Regency, does it always make sense? And the answer is no.
Right. And I think that's the biggest problem with the brands. And I think they're starting to learn that because there are some powerful owners that are starting to really, really give it to the brands. And I think that, like even the PIP, just because you're in, C category of design, you should go back and you should have an inspection. And if that brand still held up, if that renovation still held up, and they're really taking really good care of it, I don't think they need a PIP. And if there's another brand that maybe needs a PIP earlier because that C brand or that C design is just getting its ass kicked.
Yeah. Anthony got his ass kicked. Oh my. Looks like everybody got kicked out. You there?
Yeah, that was all of us, huh?
All of us. Yeah, well, you first, then the rest of us. Michael's gone. Your thing is gone. We're still on air, though. Very strange. Here comes back Michael. We all got bumped. We all got bumped on that one. That was pretty crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Michael, he's fixing his thing. We're getting close to wrapping up anyway. So why don't you just kind of summarize overall what your general sentiment is coming out of the Alice conference this week, and maybe provide a good piece of advice for everyone going forward.
My general sentiment is that things are indeed coming back. I'm hopeful that 2024 will be the year that we are truly on a post-inflation adjustment back. I think some markets, urban environments, particularly northern ones.
Yeah.
Chicago, although, it is my home. Chicago is hurting, San Francisco.
Yes, sir.
And there are all kinds of factors that we all saw the folks outside of the hotels this week when we were walking by.
That's right. There was a major protest going on in downtown LA.
So
specifically geared towards the hospitality industry. Yeah.
Are out there in the major cities. And I think that that's going to be an issue. I am hopeful for increased corporate travel. And I think there's some more creative financing things. Glenn, you've been shouting from the rooftops about the sale leaseback. I call that a new old thing.
Yeah, right.
Because that's hotel management agreements all started as hotel leases with insurance companies. So
interesting.
That's the morphing of that. And so the sale leaseback concept, I'll give credit to John Rutledge at Oxford Properties and at Oxford Capital in Chicago. He sort of did some sale leasebacks with European style sale leaseback on his.
And quickly explain to our audience. I know we're closing. We're explaining that real quick.
Sale leaseback. You own a hotel, developed a hotel, and rather than going and getting debt, you sell the hotel to an investor, typically an institutional investor, and you lease it back for simply a percentage of the amount that you got paid for the hotel. And there are some guarantees or lines of credit, letters of credit that go with that. But basically, you own the operations. and you don't own the real estate anymore, and you lease it like you lease an apartment, or you lease a home, or you lease an office.
Right. And the idea is with that extra cash flow, then you could develop other properties. And when I'm talking to my friends over at Zell Capital Partners, are like, we could have the one and own the land, or you might be able to use that same cash for three, you know?
And it's being done and has been done for years and years in the casino space. There are
Right.
two major REITs now, two left, that are doing that in the casino space, and it's very common there. And yeah, as I said, that's sort of a new old thing. And the new thing is that there's something out there called Delaware statutory trusts, which are things recognized by the IRS as places where people with 1031 deferred profit exchanges can put their money. There are some serious restrictions, and we're starting to see smart sponsors get a loan to buy a property, and then they syndicate it. They pay off the loan with the syndication proceeds, because you can't refinance a DST and you can't ask for new capital. So everything is packaged up front, and that's the new thing in financing. And I suspect, fortunately, one of my clients has just recently done their first. Right. They're about to do their second, and they're open for business to do many more. They think it's a good platform. So that's where some financing will come. The rescue capital is going to be out there. I think that the piece of advice is, if you're particularly in a CMBS environment, if you have some issues, you start writing the servicer as often as you need to, because they are typically somewhat slow to respond. And you build up your record so that they know that you've been asking for help, or for this, or for whatever it is, on an ongoing basis. It could be 6 months once this stuff starts to hit the fan again.
Okay, real quick, explain 1031 to everybody that doesn't know, because those are the best.
If you have a piece of real estate and you sell it, if you reinvest in a similar broadly defined piece of real estate, you don't have to pay your capital gains taxes. You keep the same basis, your adjusted basis from the original property in the new property, and you could keep doing this time after time after time.
And most people
structure does not allow you to do it. You invest it. When they sell the hotel or whatever the asset is, you're paying your taxes on it then. You can't.
Who doesn't allow it?
The IRS doesn't allow it in the Delaware statutory trust structure.
Oh, okay.
But I think we'll start seeing DST, Delaware statutory trust syndications, and they will be for people that have $500,000, $750,000 of capital gains that they don't want to pay taxes on. So
there's most of the properties I've been involved in, it's usually 1031. They're like, hey, we're taking that over. I was like, why that hotel? It's like, we need to place our money before it's too late.
Exactly. There are time limits and all this. That is very complicated. Don't use your friendly neighborhood lawyer for that one. Find somebody that understands 1031 exchanges.
That makes sense. Michael, how can we learn more about what you do? Let us know. It's time for your shameless plug.
Reach out to me, MCS, my initials, MCS at fourcornersadvisors.com. And my website is.
What do you do? In a nutshell, tell people what you do.
I do what I do. I am typically an owner advisor on pre-development, brand management selection. Of late, I've done some strategic advisory to some ownership groups that also operate their hotels to help them figure out how to move forward in this environment. I am an expert witness right now in a case. I'm an arbitrator in another case. I do think there will be more disputes that will go to arbitration, and I do that stuff. Right now, no two of my current engagements are the same, which is great.
That's fun. That's interesting and creative.
You sound like RJO Hospitality. That's my company.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm busy and I'm happy, and my grandkids are growing beautifully.
That's beautiful. That's the most important part, right?
Yep.
Hey, Michael, we'll wrap up. Stick around backstage, would you?
I shall.
We'll talk to you later. Anthony, I'll tell you what, going to this Alice conference, it really, it's got the same vibe as the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. It just kind of figures, you just have to be all over and the whole thing goes by really Quick.
You know, and I want to make a shout out. We're going to have her on the show, hopefully.
Yeah.
But there's this young lady, and I don't know her full name, so I'm not going to say it on air. Last name's Price. I forgot her first name. And she comes over to me, and fan of Hotel Impossible, grew up watching it the whole nine. Went to college because of it, hospitality, but she didn't go to like a Cornell or whatever. But she got engaged with different associations.
Right.
She got herself to Alice.
Right.
Foods Association, started connecting people.
Mhm.
She met me. She's going to be on our show.
Yep.
She's going to have me as a mentor for as long as she wants me as a mentor.
Nice.
She'll get on our show. She'll get some FaceTime, all because she put her pants on and she walked out the door.
Yep.
And you don't have to go to Cornell. You don't have to go to college. You just have to click in. Could you imagine what would happen if you walked into Alice as a high school senior and say, hey, Mr. Hilton, Marriott, whatever, teach me the hotel business? They will have 30 people jumping on them to get them in the business. So I was just so proud of her and she wasn't overly aggressive and she wasn't too quiet. She was just perfect the way she addressed me. As a matter of fact, I spent probably 25 minutes with her because the way she approached me, as opposed to 2 minutes, because she was so kind and so open. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience for me.
Wow. The only person I spent that much time with was the guy handing out the drinks at the free bar.
Yeah, I saw you. There was one brand leader. I think it was brand leader of Best Western. You attacked him. I saw you go, hey, you were very excited.
Well, there's a lot of cool people you got to say hello to. And what I really loved the Alice conference for being able to meet up with so many people, have great conversations with everybody.
Yeah, but let me tell people, you put in the work, bro.
Thanks.
You put in the work. Like everything that you've built. Everybody said Glenn Houseman. Oh, everybody knows him. And what is it? He does a podcast. He does this. He does that. This man is a ditch digger. He literally digs and calls and meets and runs and interviews. Like, watching you is an inspiration.
Thanks, bro. But if you all want to be successful, and Anthony, you were saying this also, you realize you just gotta be present, be in
Put your pants on, walk out the door.
Be there, right? That's exactly what it is. And part of our way to help you all get your pants on and walk out the doors by listening to us every day. If you can't watch us, listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you get your shows. We are there. For some reason, if we're not, let us know. He's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. Watch us on video, LinkedIn, Facebook. You know the drill by now. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We'll be back next week. And until then, remember, you've got one life, so blaze on, eh?
Be kind to yourself.
Peace out.